the outcomes and measures for DevSecOps. There's different types of outcomes and goals. There's technical, business, and human aspects. So the technical outcomes are, you want faster, more frequent deployments, improve code security and quality. Technically, that's true. From a business point of view, you want faster flow of value, more innovation, more products, more business services, and continuous security risk governance and audits, because the cost of having security breaches can be, from a business point of view, crippling. At the human level, you want to have people learning, improving their skills, being satisfied with their jobs. And generally speaking, you want to stay where they are. You don't want a lot of attrition that's costly. So you want people to be happy. So there's a lot of goals. These are not even a complete list, but certainly a good categorization. Both security process compliance and risks should be measured. So security process compliance and risks are two different types of outcomes to measure. And the gaps between the goals of what you set and the actual outcome should be used to create backlogs. So you're constantly trying to accomplish your goals, and the goal may be evolving as well. Maybe you set some improvement goals, for example, and so the improvements are constantly being improved, and you have to keep seeing how far you're getting towards those improvements. So some of the security fitness components that you want to measure would be process outcomes, maybe to what extent are your pipelines satisfying different security standards. Maybe you've got a technical debt on that, where there's some pipelines that don't have, they're not fully compliant. So you've got some technical debt there you're measuring. Over time, you want to, set some local maturity or compliance standards for your pipelines and measure how well you're improving. Looking at risk and measuring risk, there's various ways you can do that, but clearly you want to converge on keeping risks at some measurable level as much as you can. There's no such thing as 100% security or zero risk, but you want to have ways of measuring that. Every stage may have, in the pipeline may have different goals, and you want to keep track of those things. If you're looking at, for example, flow and sources of bottlenecks, and theory of constraints, where you have constraints, you want to keep an eye on that. And then gate or threshold or track progress. So you want to keep track of where problems are, and keep an eye on progress, not only the effectiveness, but also the progress of your transformations as well towards a higher performing DevSecOps environment. You can also have continuous improvement over absolute measures. So release to release, you may have some improvement goal, like we're going to improve our metrics by 5% per release, or some kind of general improvement number. In general, you do want to keep improving. If you don't, your competitors will, and you're going to fall behind. So rather than having some absolute target, it's usually better to have some improvement goals. So at least you're moving in better and better directions towards better rather than worse. This is just a summary of, kind of comparing old traditional approaches to more modern, DevSecOps approaches. So the traditional approach, you may have this idea of managing and operating under kind of a strict or disciplined environment, where you identify the scope, set up tasks for each application, apply that, verify it, and measure. Whereas in a more, modern, more dynamic environment, you'll certainly still identify the scope for governance engineering, for example, but the pipeline itself will provide more dynamically feedback against standards, and you're looking for continuous improvement rather than just trying to achieve a goal. Instead, you're looking for ongoing improvements and constant measurements. Engineering benefits. So adopting a responsive DevSecOps engineering principles helps move from a traditional security model in which dictates rigid standards to become more responsive to needed changes in value streams and CI/CD pipelines. So you can see there's a consistent theme across these different slides. We're talking about ongoing improvements. The effect will be to ensure that security does not slow down deployment, even as you make improvements to things. DevSecOps engineering ensures Security controls and measures are designed into pipelines and meet evolving security compliance and outcomes. So again, comparing traditional versus more modern governance engineering. In the traditional approach, auditing is more like operating audits. Being adaptive is an iterative thing, separate plans. And engagement is kind of dictating activities and actions to try to get people and things to do things. Whereas in a more modern governance engineering approach, auditing is more integrated in with the system, not separately operated. Adaptability is more dynamic, where the system itself is, dynamically operating. And engagement is more like collaboration rather than somebody dictating. You're trying to work together to make improvements with the different parts of your teams. So that's also on the quiz. What should outcomes look like? So security outputs for each value stream and pipeline should map directly to process and risk governance requirements. The little diagram here on the right shows that you want auditable outcomes. That means you need to have security process compliance key performance indicators. There's a little definition here of what a KPI is. You probably already know that, but KPI is a measurable value that demonstrates how effectively a company is achieving key business objectives. So also other outcomes are security risks. So you'll have KPIs for process compliance as well as risks. The output should be in the form of KPIs usable for audit and change management requirements. That relates to IT service management, topic unto itself, and design data flows. So you want to keep track of all of the data and how it's evolving as you build up towards decisions for things like releases. Automatically log findings. So you want to keep track of data that make decisions and do analysis when you need to. Through issue management, reduce bottlenecks between security and dev teams so that data can help you identify solutions and improvements. Security process compliance KPI. So there are many possible KPIs. This is certainly not even an exhaustive list, but some good examples. How would you, have some measures to validate compliance? So these are this little diagram, really a list, right? But as some examples, you might have a pipeline compliance metric. You tick off the number of regulatory elements that you're satisfying up to 100%. So what percentage are you covering all the regulatory requirements? Similarly, to what extent does release management include, maybe as code or all the different security controls and measures as part of the release decisions? Pipeline might be things like measuring code quality, what percentage of the code is being scanned for security. Security compliance could be just an overall security metric. You can come up with your own, or there's others that you could follow. Application security in particular, zooming in on specific applications and to what extent are they covered by your security controls. Code promotion, when you're going from let's say a integration to delivery to deployment, have you got security checks in each of those promotion activities? Logging and metrics, to what extent do you have of your identified metrics and logs for security? Have they been implemented? Are they being used? And pipeline conformance for environment controls, things like the test environments and infrastructure as well. To what extent have you got security controls on all of those? So the values here just kind of represent an adoption against some standard, and they're not, typically they're local standards that you set up for your individual pipelines. You can have it at a corporate level maybe, or have individual standards for each application or something flexible. The ability to threshold and gate for DevSecOps stage is important, so you can see the progress as code is going through the different pipelines. You can see whether things are getting in the positive or negative direction and take action accordingly.